Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Set to Love. Today, we're talking about keep your eye on the prize. You can live a life in flow where your deepest heart's desires become reality.
You are here to contribute through your essence, fall deeper in love with your life and the journey that you are on.
Take what works, ditch the rest, and always stay set to love.
Thank you for being a part of this community. We're all designed to live in flow. So let's go.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. I got a good night's sleep. How about you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, I woke up at 3-ish because I always wake up at 3-ish in the morning. Here's the beautiful thing about waking up in the middle of the night like that is I roll over and I see that it's 3 and I think, it's only 3. I've got plenty of time more to sleep. When you roll over and you look at the clock and it says 6:30 and you know you have 2 more minutes, that's kind of sad. But when you roll over and it's 3 and you know you got 3 more hours,
I
it's
love
beautiful.
that.
Right?
See?
Find the good.
I do love that though, because sometimes I'll wake up if I've drank a lot of water. Sometimes I'll wake up 3 or 4 times, and I'm thinking, geez. And this last night's sleep, the last hour after I woke up and I had an hour left, I got the best sleep of the whole night.
That is when you lucid dream. Like that is where that sometimes can be the most amazing sleep and where truly like your intuition's talking to you. I mean, that's a whole nother show we could be talking about.
Yeah.
But honestly, that time in the morning is when you're like the most, your subconscious is the most awake and kind of talking to you in your dreams and stuff. And it can just feel so restful as well. So anyhow, what made you want to think about this topic? Keep your eye on the prize. When we were talking about that, you're like, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like that. Was there something that came up for you?
I woke up thinking about it. I don't know why. I mean, I guess like you said, that last hour, because I feel like everybody needs to know that if you just have your goal, but just know that nothing good, if you just submit to it, nothing that you want comes right now. Everything in life. And if you just realize it doesn't matter what it is, what goal it is. I think keeping your eye on the prize and each day taking steps towards whatever it is that you want helps your brain to just realize, okay, well, if I do this little bit, and then you start to, as time goes on and you start to see your progress with whatever it is. I mean, let's even just take your book. Once you decided and you had where you wanted to go, and then each day you put one foot forward towards whether it was a chapter or you called me and we read a chapter and we edited and we did. And then the next thing you know, few months later, it was finally done. And what happens if you don't set that each day pushing you forward, then 3 months has gone by and nothing's happened for you. How many years did you let that book sit?
Years,
right?
Years, because it felt overwhelming. It felt too big. So I think when that is like, for me to say, oh, I'm going to go run a marathon when I can't even run a half a mile without stopping, it seems daunting and it seems really overwhelming. But what I do love about this kind of what you're saying and what I hear you saying is those little steps. Like you're not just going to get out and do the whole marathon. You're going to do intervals. You're going to start slow. You're going to do 1 mile. Then you're going to maybe tack on a little half mile. And then you'll go 2 miles and you build momentum, building momentum towards something. And I think that's with the book in particular, but with so many things in life, it really is like just knowing that the small steps really matter because they add up, and that momentum when you look back and you think, wow, I've spent 3 months, every day I touched it and I worked on it a little tiny bit, and now look at how far I've come. So you're right. Just keeping your eye on the goal. What is it you're trying to obtain? And then taking those baby steps every day. Well, sometimes big steps.
Do you have any ideas though? I mean, I'm thinking like, what ideas could we give people to pick something that they want to set a goal to and actually achieve it? because I think sometimes even we stay stagnant in life and we don't even challenge ourselves to doing anything new. And then in that, when you're doing something new and you are achieving goals, you're much happier, and that
Mhm.
gets you closer to flow.
This is what comes to mind for me when you say that. I was listening to a podcast, and the guy was one of the founders or co-founders of Netflix, and he now has a podcast called That'll Never Work, because people told him Netflix will never work. And his big piece of advice was to, like, we have these big huge goals, but to start small. Like, what's the smallest goal that you can take from that? So here's an example. When I was visiting Emmy, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago, last weekend, one of those, there was a mom there who wanted to start a youth theater because she was bringing her daughter to Emmy's theater, but it was very far for her to go. Up in northern Arizona, wherever she's from, there is nothing like it. There's a big theater community, but it's not until high school, so they don't have things for kids. So she was talking to me about like renting a space, because the space they rent is like $10,000 a month. And she's like,
Oh my
I got
God.
to figure out how to get $10,000 a month and blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking about this guy in this podcast, and I said, why don't you start really small? Like, why do you have to just jump in and rent the space, or, jump in and start the nonprofit? Or why does it have to be so big? Why don't you just borrow a church and have a small group and try one show? Or, Rick, how can you achieve this goal by breaking it down to whatever the smallest element is for you? And then you go and achieve that. And I said to her, I said, go produce one show and see what it's like. What if you hate it? What if the entire process was not even fun for you? Then you're not so committed. If you go out and rent a space for $10,000 a month and try to get all these donors and do all this stuff, and then you realize 2, 3, 4 months in that you don't even like the process, what have you just committed yourself to? So I think I'm saying that to say, take those smaller steps and maybe chunk down that. At least for me, I have big, huge goals and ideas. And so how do you break it down into the smallest, simplest form where you're still achieving that goal, but that's where you put your attention. And once you've done that, like, hey, I produced that one show and it was fun and the kids loved it. And now I have a community of kids and parents who I can now recruit to help with the next step. And maybe the next step is 2 shows. We're going to do a season. Or maybe the next step is finding a space that you can rent that isn't $10,000 a month. So it may be a little bit less. So I think that would be that's what comes up for me when
Wow, that was really great. I mean, what I'm taking from what you said too is that when you start out small, you learn so many lessons along the way. This is mostly what I took from you, is that when you start, I mean, it could be at a park. It doesn't really matter. You're getting the kids together. You're not overcommitted. You're not spending money you don't have. Like, I mean, always, most of the time when you want to try a sport, you want to have all the equipment, you want all the things. And then you get there and you don't like camping. Right? So better to go with somebody that has all the stuff and experience it. That was great advice. I love that.
Thanks.
That was really good.
Well, that's what I feel. I think sometimes we have to chunk things down. When people would call me or talk to me and say, hey, I want to start a camp, or I want to start this thing, I would say, start small. Just do one day. Like, just host one thing. Just have kids over at your house and do crafts for 2 hours. Do you even like it? Is that even fun for you? How did you find the kids? What are you calling it? What is, you don't have to just come out of the gate with a whole camp and a whole big program. So sometimes just taking your big idea, making it smaller, like what is achievable, what can we do, and what isn't going to cost too much. What is, if you don't like it, the risk is minimal, but you're still taking a risk.
Yeah.
And then you evaluate, look around, get some feedback, and then you move on to the next thing. I mean, that's part of living in flow. This part of flow is being able to receive that feedback as you're moving along on the journey of whatever your prize is, whatever that goal is. And sometimes the feedback that you get might lead you in a totally different direction, or at least a different way of doing it.
And I also think it's important when you're doing all of this too, is don't let the negative talk come in. I would just dismiss it as it comes in, because sometimes when we're trying to get somewhere and, keeping your eye on the prize, you have these thoughts of, oh, this is never going to work.
Yep.
Or
Well, that's
why
the
am I
thing,
doing
Shelley. So some people will never start because it seems so big. So like writing the book, some people will never even start. It will stay in their head and it'll be beautiful in their head. And that idea will look really good. And they'll never even bring it out into the world because it seems so daunting.
And that's
Right. And that negative voice. And then when you do start, that negative voice can pipe up and like crush your dream because it feels way too big or too hard. So if you can chunk it down and make it really simple, like what I did for the book, is not the whole book, it's a chapter, right? But that chapter could stand alone and is standing alone. And once I've done it once, then you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad after all. I can do this again. And if you can keep doing that, then all of a sudden you'll look back and you'll just be so amazed at the progress that you've been able to make. So don't let that negative voice keep you from even starting small.
Also, I feel like when you at least get through like a week, like just even in breaking down whatever you're doing, just get through 1 week of staying committed to taking a step each day, and then evaluate that week, what worked, what was great, and what didn't work, and then go to the next week. And I think when you keep your goals small at first, just you are, like you said, don't look at the big picture, but even on your daily walk with what you're trying to do, reevaluate and also pat yourself on the back. That was a really good week for whatever it is that you did or whoever you helped. And I think that kind of gives you the gas to keep going
It absolutely does.
Instead of just keeping your eye on the prize and keep going. Like, stop and acknowledge, wow, I'm so proud of myself that I did that. Because if we're not our own cheerleaders in our own heads,
you're right.
I think that you sometimes will lose some of your energy.
Yeah, and those small wins really are, I love that you said that, the gas, because it's like those small little wins, and when you can recognize them, they do give you that momentum to keep going. Like, okay, if I can get out and walk every day for a week, then maybe next week I can get out and start running. I'll run half that time. And then the next week you can add a little more and add a little more. So whatever it is that you're doing, when you have those little small wins, whether it's making better, healthier choices for your body, for your mind, in a project or a goal that you have in a relationship that you want to improve. If you had like, I want to have a better relationship with XYZ, call that person, once a week. And then that once a week might turn into maybe twice a week.
It builds into, you're not trying so hard. You're just making steps towards what you want it to be. And then before you know it, you'll be super close with that person. I guarantee that.
Yes.
Right? If you you don't have an expectation of what you think that person has to be, just let everybody show up as they are. And the other thing is too, is staying positive, because what you think is really what you're setting your mind and you actually do. So if you're still going through the motions, but you're telling yourself it's not going to work, you need to tell yourself, little voice, shut up.
Yeah.
And I hate that word. But you do.
This is going to work.
That's just the meanest words. So that's what you have to tell that mean voice, and tell it to go away, because, I don't know. Why do we have that little voice? It's
just human nature. I don't know. That would be a question I would have for God. I'd sit down and go, why did you give us this? Like, what's the benefit? Maybe we need to have a show on the benefit of the negative voice in our head, because there must be one. Otherwise, why do we have it? So I do think becoming friends with that and being able to overcome. And so it might still be there as a way to check you, kind of keep you regulated. But if the positive voice can be the 51%, and the goal that you have was the 51%, and that's where your focus is, then you will get there, even if it's just baby steps every single day. I think that's the most important thing. And to recognize, hey, okay, I see you.
You're not going to win. I'm going to win.
I'm going to win. I'm keeping my eye on the prize.
Exactly.
I love you, best friend. Thank you so much for another great episode today.
Yes. So everybody, thank you for coming to Set to Love. You can email us, talk to us at settolove@podcastgmail.com. We're here weekday mornings. I want to thank you so much for being in my life, Eva. I'm so grateful. Stay in gratitude, everyone. That's
another thing. Stay in gratitude. Yay, always. Have a great day.
All right. Hit the bell.